right Saugatuck Township Board to order on Wednesday, November 9, 2022 at 6:01 p.m. If you can, please stand and join me. The Pledge of Allegiance. Oh, roll call first, sorry. Okay, who's here first? Thank you. Elmerick.
I'm here.
Israel here, Bigford here, Marcy here, Aldrich here. Everyone here. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This new item 3, approval of the agenda. I trust that everyone has had a chance to look over the agenda, and I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Motion by Aldrich, is there support? I'll support. Support by Marcy. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Brings us to public comment. Just a reminder, this is not a question and answer session, and that individuals have 3-minute time limit to talk to the board, and those speaking on behalf of a group have an additional 2 minutes, so 5 whole minutes to address the board. Mr. Searing, you look ready. Yes.
I'm anxious. Of course, we're really happy that this millage passed and happy you guys supported us. But Daniel, we've talked about the idea and Daniel finally got us going. He encouraged us, he helped us out, he guided us, and he did a lot of work. So we really appreciate that support that he gave us. So in addition to the millage, which we realize we won't get the money until 2024, but we've talked about some ideas and we'll come back to you folks later once we talk more detail about what we can do in the next fiscal year. We've got a couple other grants, a grant called the Spark Grant, which is there's money available. It's a simple application. It's due the 19th of December. We're working on that. We hope that'll give us some money to do some more work at the dog park. We've already got some more money in our budget. So, and we met with Glenn today and walked around, and so we're making progress, but that would give us a little extra. Will we get it? Hard to tell. It's the one good thing about it, it's no match. So Daniel today mentioned another potential grant that would give us the opportunity to evaluate property in the area that we could consider, because that's an important next step with a millage, to find property to do more than what we have right now beyond our current park. So we'll work on that, and we've got a lot of things to do, so we're going to try and get organized. This is a 10-year project, so we don't want to go off, in a lot of different directions. So we'll work with Daniel in that regard, and we'll try and keep you folks updated on a regular basis on what progress we're making. Any questions?
I don't know, Jim, I've been spending a lot of time in the dog park and it's a great little park.
Oh,
I've been dog sitting a bit and it's just really nice and well kept, and you guys are doing a great job.
It's obviously our most popular one. So what we would really like to do is some quick hitters so we, because people like it, and we could show that we're doing something more quickly.
Right.
So we do want to concentrate on doing some things there too.
okay.
Yeah, I have one quick question.
Yes.
Okay. I just have one question. Jim, do you have a grant writer?
Do you have
A grant writer?
No.
Someone who can write your grants?
No, Dana is a big help. Dana, they did our grant for River Bluff. We did that, and we had them write it. Some of the DNR grants require a lot of extraneous information about the area, you know, demographics, types of income, property, other parks in the area. Because they're trying to weigh it against, and they give you points, and we're not really familiar with that. The only grant we've done is the one at River Bluff. And we didn't get many points because of the area, so to answer your question, no.
Okay, I was just going to suggest that, my first meeting here, I think it was August, so I was a little nervous, but someone had come before the group who also had experience in grant writing. So
What's the
Kathy's
Kathy's
term.
term?
Kathy Stern,
And Elliot's one.
and oftentimes they will assist with writing the grant, and if the grant is granted, then they work out a sum for you to pay them, which is, you know, a very minor sum, but sometimes that's helpful to have someone you can connect with and do that. So that's just a suggestion, and I'm sure there's other grant writers too, but,
Yeah, and we paid pre-Millhoff,
right,
we paid them, and then we would have paid ourselves back out of the grant, but we didn't get the grant, and so it cost us $7,000.
right. But sometimes someone like Kathy may say, well, I'll do the grant, and if you get the grant, then this is what I would like and usually it's not.
For Daniel.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just wanted you to know that. That was my only question.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, any ideas you guys have that, you know,
Okay.
we certainly appreciate.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Would you like to make a public comment?
Yes.
Please state your name and
My name is Russ Boersma with Aero Waste. I'm the general manager of Aero Waste. We're a hauling company out of Jenison, and we definitely haul in this area. I noticed on the agenda, and I noticed that you guys have been talking about is the single waste hauler option in the township. And I just wanted to come and make some comments. I've been talking with Daniel a couple times about it as well. But just wanted to make some comments that we invested in this township over the last 20 years. We started with just a handful of customers in this area, and now we've grown to servicing more than half of the township. We've grown from a one truck operation to now a large hauler in the area because of our service, and because we also feel with competition that we've been able to offer an alternative than some of the national companies. I think without us, there'd probably be little to no competition in this area right now, and people choose us because of our service and our customer service. We still answer the phone live. They like to call and talk to somebody. Our service on the street is reliable, and people choose us for that reason. I believe that competition does keep prices down in this area, and helps all the residents of this area. And people like to have a local choice. So we are a local family-owned company, and people like to choose us for that reason as well. In our opinion, we would ask for a freedom of choice for your residents. I've seen single waste haulers happen before, and there is some interest in the beginning, but then after a while, there isn't as much interest in it. Like I think Valley Township down the road, they recently went out to bid, and they only had one bidder, and it was kind of the same situation that we're in. If we leave an area, we probably wouldn't come back. I mean, we've been here again 20 years, invested a lot of money into marketing, into our company, into the residents of this area. And if for some reason we weren't able to do that anymore, provide service, there wouldn't be an opportunity for us to come back. Our customers also like having different options like walk-up service. We provide a lot of at the garage walk-up service. We also do private drives, where some other companies have chosen not to do private drives. We still offer that. Customers have reached out to us and said that they specifically choose us because of our specialty services and what we can offer. We appreciate our customers and want to stay a local family-owned business that they can choose, and we're just want to be part of the conversation and here to help you through this process. I've been through this twice before at 2 different Saugatuck Township meetings and 2 different times where they were looking at going through this. So I've been here before, and, you know, I'm sure you guys know that in the past, they've chosen to keep it an open market, and we just ask that you keep doing that, as keep that option open. And if there's anything that we can help or work with you on going through this process, just let us know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Russ.
Morgan, is there anyone participating online?
There is no one.
Okay. All right, then I'll close the public comment section and move on to item 5 on the agenda, which is the consent agenda. Trustee Aldrich did let me know that she has a fire board report. We can add that to our packet and have that be part of our official packet. If you have questions or would like to see that, please see her. It was quite brief. She did attend the meeting, not much to report. But other than that, the consent agenda stands. And again, I trust that you guys have all had time to review those documents and that correspondence. There was one correspondence emailed late from Dick Plaskins. That's it. So unless there's any questions or comments.
The updated minutes are at your table too.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so we'll include that in the formal packet and file it, but I wanted you to know that there were just a couple minor changes made to it.
Yeah, I was gonna ask what changed, because I haven't been able to read the revised.
Oh,
list.
just some of the comments from Big Bird were clarified when she updated us on some things.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
I had read the first one.
I know. I know.
Like a motion?
Yes, please.
I would move to approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Aldrich. Is there support?
I'll support.
Support by Helmrich. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
No, I'd like to
Go ahead,
make
yes,
a comment.
please, go ahead.
No, because sometimes I know we breeze through this and I know everyone reads these things. I just want to point out in a positive way that in the list of payments we made in the last month, there was about $24,000 of payments, one to Evelyn Marsh on the building remodel, our annual fee to BSNA, which basically runs the township, both in accounts payable and taxes, and also a subsequent payment to Horizon who are doing the ordinance review. I just want to point that out because those were higher bottles, but they were easily absorbed and taken care of, which is a positive thing. And you'll hear later about our current fiscal status. And also just because this does need board approval and we just approved it, the annual drain assessments, which are set by the Allegheny County Drain Commission, and people in drain districts, those charges, that assessment goes on their winter tax bill. So that was included too. Thank you.
Excellent. Any further discussion? None? All in favor? Opposed? Consent agenda passes 5-0. We have no presentations tonight. That brings us to item number 7 on the agenda, new business. And that's regular board meeting schedule. Is there anything to note about this, Daniel, or
It's somewhat perfunctory, but it's something that's important and necessary. We do need to approve the regular meeting schedule by a resolution. And we are required to meet at least once every 3 months. We meet monthly, so that satisfies that state requirement. I had set the schedule to kind of follow precedent, so we meet the second Wednesday of every month. That can be changed if you want to discuss that But I thought that was helpful just for the public to keep that going, so our meeting schedule is predictable for them, but definitely something that you can discuss, but just looking to kind of move this along and establish the schedule going into the next year.
Are there any concerns with the keeping the schedule the same or thoughts about making potential alterations?
Oh, that's wonderful. I would propose a motion then that we adopt resolution 2022-17 to set the 2023 regular schedule of the Saugatuck Township Board and determine that regular meetings for the year 2023 will be held on the second Wednesday of every month at 6 p.m.
I'll support. A motion by Israel's and support by Marcy. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call the roll. Israel's,
Yes.
Marcy? Yes. Helmrich,
Yes.
Aldrich?
Yes.
Bigford, yes. Motion carries 5-0. And brings us to the consolidated fee schedule revision. Daniel, will you please go ahead and give us the description on this item?
Absolutely. So the second resolution for this evening, so any modifications or revisions to the consolidated fee schedule have to be approved by a resolution. We did revise it a few months ago. It had not been touched in years, and I imagine that there might continue to be a few items that we pull up that do require some revision. The revision that we had approved a few months ago was fairly comprehensive and did have to do with raising rates because they were very low given the rates of our neighbors. So we did a lot of looking at what the rates were for our other municipal neighbors, what the averages were, what our expenses were. We had the benefit of having staff members who work for multiple municipalities, so they were able to give their feedback. So it wasn't just raising the rates, but also simplifying it for the public when they're coming in, just so they're able to understand it and that we're able to, easily calculate rates. In this case, we're looking at 3 different changes to the fee schedule. The first change would be implementing what the city of Saugatuck calls a investigation fee. So currently, if there are violations to our rental regulation policy, we do have the ability of instituting a civil violation. And that's a complicated process. There's paperwork involved. There is a monetary fee associated with that. But it's not necessarily something that we want to pursue lightly. And it kind of prevents us from following up with violations. What the city's done is it's implemented a multiple notification process. So in this case, you get a friendly reminder, you get a notification, you get a second notification. And with that, it kind of notifies you that if you don't respond, there might be a fee associated with that. And there might be a follow-up, and if you don't, follow up with that, there's another fee. So it's set out over a multiple month period. And it gives the city a little more flexibility to follow up with violators, whether they're unregistered or whether or not their license or registration has expired. So we're looking to implement this in the township. So it gives us a little more flexibility in pursuing those who violate the rental regulations. It also mirrors the policy of the city. So it establishes that continuity between the municipalities. Part of the revision or the previous revision to the fee schedule was having our fee schedule for rental regulations mirror that of Saugatuck and Douglas. So this would just be a kind of a continuation of that. So that's that first one. Then that's on page 38, if you want to look at your packet. Implementing that investigation fee. So if you look at a rental investigation, you can see after the second notice issued 30 days after the first notification, there's a $250 fee. And then 30 days after the issuance of the third notification, there's a $300 fee. These fees would not be fines, they would be due upon re-registration. So if the individual wanted to stop renting their unit, they absolutely could, and they wouldn't be on the hook for these fees. But if they did want to enter into the program on good standing, they would have to pay those fees. So that's that first one. I don't know if you want to stop and talk about each one, or you want me to just kind of go through them all?
What would be kind of escrowed or something, right? And just in case they came back.
Yes,
What if someone else purchased the property and wanted to come in and rent it? Would that be attached to it?
I imagine it wouldn't be attached to the property, would be attached to the property owner.
Okay.
So if there was a sale of the property and somebody else wanted to rent it, they would not be on the hook for that, because it wouldn't be a fine, it would be a fee.
Okay.
You're welcome. That's a good question, though.
I have a question just on how this would work, and is the responsibility on tracking, the notices and the interval, the time periods, and enforcing this basically, would this be the building official or the planner?
I imagine, it would be the building official in conjunction with the administrative support person.
Okay,
And right now, we do keep track of everybody's registration. We have a notification system in place where we know when their registration is about to expire. We let them know in advance. So there's a whole system in place. So it's kind of just building on an infrastructure or soft infrastructure that already exists.
okay. And now that person, the building inspector, is full-time, it
Yes,
shouldn't be too difficult to absorb this.
no,
It's not gonna create a huge influx of
if anything, it
time and
relieves,
work
yeah,
necessary.
it relieves a little frustration.
Good,
Because
okay.
previously we really couldn't do anything without issuing a civil infraction. And that takes a lot more work on our part. And it's also kind of raises the severity of the situation, and we do want to give people some flexibility. So it gives flexibility to the person who's part of the rental program. And it gives flexibility to the township to kind of say that this is serious, because it does involve safety. I mean, that's part of the registration process. It's a fire inspection to make sure the property is safe. So gives us a little more muscle without having to go to an extreme. And it gives that individual an opportunity to respond. So.
And would the civil infraction be, the last resort?
It's like a last resort. It's like really when you're raising the stakes. So this kind of gives us an intermediate option. And there's still a fee attached to that too,
Right.
so, but it is a little more on the extreme side.
Just graduated sanction.
It's a
Okay.
graduated sanction.
And the timing here in paragraph Q and the costs are consistent with the two cities, you said.
Exactly, yeah, we modeled it just on the city of Saugatuck, yeah. So
Thank you.
you're welcome.
That's great.
Right. Want to talk about the second change?
Yes, so one of the changes that we instituted in the prior revision of the fee schedule was to do away with the different how do I want to put this? We had different formulations for calculating permit fees based on construction type. And then it changed with increases in the construction value of the project, and it was very confusing. And it was even difficult for staff to keep up with it and calculate it. And it was almost impossible for the public to even understand it. So what we did was we kind of came up with a single formula for calculating the permit fee based on construction value. And that was $3.50 per $1,000 of construction value for the project. And then we didn't distinguish between construction type. So it was the same formula, whether it was industrial, commercial, or residential. And then we instituted a cap on the permit fee, and we set that at approximately $2.14 million. What we're seeing is we're getting projects that are at or exceeding that construction value, and we think that we probably set it too low. We did have to bring on a full-time building official, and I think it's quite warranted. And even with a full-time building official, it's not unusual for me to be pulled into a project or for our zoning administrator to be pulled into a project. So we're seeing more complicated projects. So we were considering raising the cap, the fee cap from 2.14 million to 3 million, because we think that with that, it would cover the additional costs that we're seeing because these projects are a little more involved and we're seeing bigger projects. So it would be raising the fee cap, not raising the rate would stay the same. But we are raising the fee cap for permit fees. And then the other thing that we're looking to do is exclude commercial and industrial construction from that fee cap. So currently the fee cap applies to all construction types. So it would, if the fee cap would cap out at $2.14 million, whether it's a house, a commercial building or an industrial structure. So what we're saying here is that that fee cap should only apply to residential type construction. That if it's industrial or if it's commercial, because it's a little more involved than just residential construction, that the cap shouldn't apply.
The scale is so varied, you could have.
Yeah, and the scale could, I mean, with residential, I mean, we can kind of see where it caps out. With commercial and industrial, we do have quite a bit of commercial property and industrial property in the township, and it's very difficult for us to foresee what possible developments could come in. So instead of trying to guess, we're just not having a cap applied to industrial and commercial properties.
So if you have several commercial properties on one property, several commercial buildings, and they're obviously building them out over several years. Is the project taken in whole or per individual building?
It would probably be per phase. It
Okay.
involves when you get into the actual construction phase.
Okay. That makes sense.
And then the third little change is that we're limiting the permit fee cap to single residential structures with not more than 4 units. So this is a little weird. So it's quite possible that a project could come into the township that's more dense, a more dense residential project that's one large apartment complex. And let's say it's 50 units in the apartment complex. The way that the fee schedule is written now, the permit fees would cap out at the cap that we've instituted, although the project value could be much higher than that $3 million mark. And because you're dealing with individual units in a single building, it's much more complex. So what we're trying to distinguish is larger residential projects, multi-unit residential projects from kind of run-of-the-mill residential projects. So we're still considering a single residential structure up to 4 units, just the same as a single family home. We're looking at that the same, but when the structure is more than 4 units, we're not instituting that cap.
Oh, okay, good. Okay.
So again, it's trying to anticipate the kind of construction that we're going to, or the type of project that we might see in the township based on what we're seeing around us.
Before we move on to the irrigation connection permit fee section, it's a lot here. It's good stuff, but
Yes.
Daniel and I had a conversation probably a week or 2 ago, and then again today regarding the changes recommended in paragraph 2 here. Do they support the notion of, do they support our support of attainable housing? And if not, or if, yes, they do, but not quite fully, is there something that we can do to change this or front load it? Just to name that we do support attainable housing and that we do have some options to waive fees or change fees. So Daniel did a little bit of work on that, and I appreciate that. Would you speak to that this time? And this is, you know, just an option. It just kind of was born out of a conversation that we had. And he was able to put a little something together to kind of address the concerns that came up during that conversation.
Yeah, and it's a great concern to have because we did, planning commission spent a great deal of time thinking about attainable housing. We're making a significant investment in a zoning consultant to look at how we can improve zoning to support attainable housing. And it makes sense to also view the consolidated fee schedule in or from the perspective of, does this promote attainable housing? For the, you know, because it might be the case that attainable housing comes in the form of a single structure with more than 4 units. It may not necessarily be that. So it's hard to say that it's going to be this one construction type. But one area of the fee schedule that gives us a little more flexibility, you'll find on page 35, and it's called reduction of fees. So there's an area of the fee schedule that lays out criteria for determining whether or not permit fees can be waived or reduced by the township board. One of those is that, you know, if an applicant can demonstrate that fees to be charged will result in significant financial hardship to the applicant, the board can decide to waive or reduce the permit fees. Or if the applicant can demonstrate that a reduced or waived fee would provide an incentive to improve a pre-existing non-conforming site, the township board can decide to waive or reduce a fee. And then we have this 4th condition, which is really, you know, just kind of open-ended, like any other reason that, you know, you determine that, you know, a fee should be waived or reduced. It's in your, you know, sole discretion to do that. So clearly the board at some point was thinking about reasons why permit fees should be waived or reduced. And I don't think it's unreasonable to say, let's have staff look at adding another condition for waiving or reducing permit fees. And that condition might be, this project satisfies standard attainable housing conditions or meets certain attainable housing standards. And that might be a reason why the board could reduce permit fees. Because, you know, attainable housing project could be quite small, it could be quite large. Maybe it's, you know, something that would impact whether or not someone would want to put an attainable housing project in. Maybe it wouldn't, but at least if it was a factor you know, that the developer was considering, there's some flexibility that we've explicitly stated is important to us, and that can be considered, and it gives you that, you know, opportunity to say, all right, this is a project that we like. We are willing to consider reducing the permit fees, or we're willing to consider waiving the permit fees because it meets these standards for attainable housing. So it's not saying that it absolutely will, but it gives you the flexibility to consider that.
I think we have to be careful with that, but I know you know that.
Mm-hmm.
And we do know that attainable housing is different than what is designated as affordable housing, which is often subsidized housing. So it's almost like saying this is a special approval use type thing, but only it's not a special approval use, but special approval projects that would fall in that realm.
Yeah, I think it's something that staff needs to spend more time on thinking about, because you don't want it to be that somebody comes in with, you know, luxury condos and there's one condo in there that's a studio and they say, oh, that's attainable housing, and all of a sudden the fees get waived. So we do need to spend a little more time crafting the language. So
Yeah.
maybe it's more of a, an ask of staff to say, can you sit down and look at this more? Is there a way to craft it so, we have a little more, discretion in terms of how this is interpreted? Or maybe staff comes back and says, this is not possible.
I
But
think that if you talk to them too, they probably each have a different idea of how that standard could be met, so it's just like a process of pulling it out and saying, how can we meet those different standards, and maybe articulate them or clarify them just a little for the. I mean, it's still leaving it somewhat open, but it would be nice to know.
mhm.
But I do think this is great, I really give you kudos for doing them.
So is that something that would have to be defined before we approve this, or?
Yeah, I would say
Okay.
that for that part, I think that I need more time to really think
Okay.
about it and look at it, and I'd like to talk to Lene about it to see if she's ever seen it before. And then kind of work through it, because I do know that there are standards out there related to attainable housing. There is a definition of attainable housing that references a specific formula for determining whether or not it is attainable. So do we add that in there? Do we require a specific number of units? So I think it's worth looking at, but it really has to be looked at carefully.
Oh, I would appreciate that.
Yeah.
So we won't move on this
You,
tonight, or?
I simply asked Daniel to take a little bit of a look, or that we could talk about
Oh,
it
okay,
tonight.
okay.
If the board decides they want to, if we decide we want to just approve, go with the motion that's prepared and approve the suggested changes, that's fine. It was just something that had kind of occurred to me, and we had talked about it on and off. And then, to be honest, reading Dick Waskin's
Yes,
letter,
right.
having a resident kind of chime in and be on that same thinking, I thought it was worth at least talking about, so.
No, I agree, but I think if we want to, we
We
could
can,
approve
Of
this.
course, you may.
I mean,
knowing,
we approved it a couple months ago and there's been additions made,
And then
and really
further
good ones,
further amended then later?
potentially.
Okay,
I mean, I think one of
we
the
can
questions we,
establish standards.
yeah, okay,
but I think that's a big question, is how rigid should those be or how flexible?
right, okay,
The fact that they have to get board approval, I lean a little more towards the flexibility
mhm,
than having it so rigid,
Mhm.
because you might have to keep redefining it. You mentioned this, I was gonna ask you this anyway. Relative to the letter we got from Mr. Waskins, who serves on the Harbor Authority as our representative. Would you say that it's this section or the connection fees? What areas do you think he was most concerned with?
I
And I
think
couldn't tell from just reading the letter.
for me, I felt like it was specifically related to the building permit fees. But in this case, we're not raising the rates, and it only affects properties of a property value between 2.14 million and 3 million,
Okay.
which in my mind doesn't constitute attainable housing, even if it's a 4-unit building.
Right,
So I just don't think that the changes that we're proposing do any more damage, or I think it's completely neutral to attainable housing in the township. But that's not to say that there are not opportunities in the consolidated fee schedule to promote attainable housing, if that makes any
Right,
sense.
okay.
Mhm.
But yeah, and I didn't get the sense that that was his focus. Attainable housing, but that's why I wanted to clarify that, so. Thank you.
All right, I just want to move on to that third and
Yeah.
Yeah,
irrigation service.
so right now we charge a service connection fee if you're tapping into a domestic water line or sewer line. But we don't charge for tapping in or having an irrigation service connection. We do see properties in the township that either they're commercial and they have no domestic water, but they do have an irrigation line for watering lawns. Or you might see a housing development where there are individual domestic lines, but there are common areas with an irrigation line. And these properties are allowed to connect to the water system, but are not paying in for the operation and maintenance costs of the water system. So this would say, if you are connecting only an irrigation service line, so not a domestic water service line, there would be a connection service fee. We set it at $1,000, and that's consistent with other communities that we looked at. If you were connecting to water at at your house, and you wanted a domestic line and an irrigation line, you would only pay the domestic connection fee. But if you're a property that is only connecting for irrigation, there would be a fee associated with that.
Do you have any example? Can you cite an example of an
Um,
existing business or?
Justamere Road, none of those buildings have domestic water,
But
but
they have
they
irrigation.
will have irrigation. And that's a fairly large site.
Yeah,
They also have 2 fire hydrants.
That's a plus.
And that's a plus. We're very, actually, we're
Safety.
very happy about that. Yeah, safety.
Plus.
so in section S, the only change here is number 3, the irrigation,
That is correct.
because I thought the water, those looked familiar to me.
Yeah, those are always there. It's just the irrigation service line. And there's also an inspection fee because we have to inspect it.
Well, yeah,
That makes sense.
as there should be.
And this is probably a foolish question, but obviously it does not go retroactive. This is going forward.
Just going forward, not retroactive. Yeah.
So we can't go to Justin.
No, we can't collect on something that wasn't connected yet. I mean, there might be there are other phases of that project that if they were
More
to,
coming, okay.
maybe it'll, maybe it'll impact their landscape plan. I don't know, but
Well, this was a lot of hard and incredible work, thank you.
you're very welcome. Yeah. And I have to give, you're welcome. And Cindy helped a lot too, talking through these.
Well, I'm sure.
And
Yeah.
Dana helped.
Thank you, Cindy and Lee.
Any questions or clarification?
That's great.
So I guess we could go with the original suggested motion or amend it to include kind of adding to that's the second bullet point. Or I know you mean the one, yeah, I heard. On page, what was it, 38?
Well, we only have the pages numbered as that are in this particular section. So I've been playing catch up, but it's right here.
Did you craft a second motion? Would
I
you just
did.
read that to see
Oh,
if people
good.
are agreeable with that or not?
So the second motion is, so this is identical to the motion that's written down.
Okay.
Move to approve the adoption of resolution number 2022-18, a resolution adopting Saugatuck Township revised consolidated fee schedule. This is the different part, and direct staff to investigate, including in the consolidated fee schedule, meeting attainable housing standards as a reason for board to waive or reduce permit fees for a construction project. That can be worded differently. That's just kind of a suggestion.
Now that,
May I?
Absolutely.
Thank you
No
for
wish.
this.
You're welcome.
I'd like to move to approve the adoption of resolution number 2022-18. The resolution adopting Saugatuck Township revised consolidated fee schedule and direct staff to investigate, including in the consolidated fee schedule, meeting attainable housing standards as a reason for board to waive or reduce permit fees for a construction project.
Motion by Comricks, is there support?
I'll support.
Support by Israel's. Is there any further discussion? Thank you for investigating that short notice. I appreciate the board. I appreciate the board considering. it.
Thank you.
All right. This is a roll call vote. Comrick,
Yes.
Israel's,
Yes.
Bigford, yes. Marcy?
Yes.
Aldrich?
Yes.
Motion carries. 5-0. brings us to the Elizabeth Street water line bid.
Oh, wasn't this removed?
This
Oh, this was
was,
your.
Right.
this is actually a happy
Okay,
ending.
sorry.
It's
I knew
okay.
that-
We didn't change that in the agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You all were very generous in recognizing that a homeowner was in a. Essentially inherited a problem that they were not the cause of, they were unaware of. Upon further investigation, they determined that the water service line was not connected to the main they thought it was connected to, it was connected to a different main. And that their actual connection to the house was not a lead service line, it was copper, so nothing has to be changed.
Oh,
So you committed funds to replacing that, it doesn't need to be replaced, so it's a happy ending, so it's off the agenda.
No harm, no foul.
Right.
Okay.
Save that
perfect.
money.
Excellent. Skipping right over that then to item number 4, our new business, ad hoc single collection committee.
Yes, so this is this is following kind of a little bit of the journey that we're on and looking at single collection as an option for the township. I've been working with the Outdoor Discovery Center, I've been talking with the sustainability director in Holland. And I think that this is a project that takes a lot of time and that we should take our time with it. I'm super happy that Russ from Aero Waste is here with us and shared his thoughts, because it isn't something that we should enter into lightly. It's not something we need to rush into. And in kind of that taking our time, we launched a survey of residents to see what was working for them in terms of waste and recycling pickup, what wasn't working for them, what they would like to see. We did a follow-up in-person public input session where we did kind of review not only the survey results, but benefits that could be had by pursuing a single collection option. From that and talking with the Outdoor Discovery Center and talking with the City of Holland, I think that the next logical step is to form a resident committee that would look at whether or not they would make a formal recommendation to the township to pursue single collection. And if the answer is yes, to put together an RFP and a draft agreement that would be acceptable to the board and that would meet community needs. We are in somewhat of how do I want to put this? The township has a lot of different areas. I mean, we're diverse. We have residential like areas, we have rural areas, we have housing associations, we have private roads. So we have a lot of folks with different needs and we need to be sensitive and aware of those needs. And I think to have a really good contract, we have to be accommodating to those needs and figure out whether or not an agreement could meet those needs. Russ talked about some of the additional services that Aero Waste does provide to their residents. And from the feedback that we've been getting, residents are looking for more specialized services. So we got feedback, trying to pull out some of the public feedback that we got. For instance, somebody was really interested in a Monday pickup.
Mhm.
We have a lot of part-time residents or residents that commute to Chicago or somewhere else and they leave on a Monday or they leave on a Sunday. So that's important to our community to have pickups on Monday. Because they don't want their garbage sitting out all week. Dependability is important to people. Customer service is important to people. Having the ability to have, what are they talking? People are talking about composting is important. People really like the hazardous waste pick drop off day that we have. So there are different needs that people have. And we want to make sure that we understand those needs and we develop an agreement that satisfies those needs. And I would say that, whatever agreement we go for, or when we're looking at going out for the RFP, that we're more service oriented as opposed to just cost oriented. I think single hauler will absolutely bring down the cost for residents no matter what we do, but we do need to consider the nuances of the needs of the community. And also in putting together this ad hoc committee, I kind of probably looking for some input from board, but my thought process was It's quite possible that at some point down the line, now that might be next year, that might be in 10 years, that the three communities might be interested in having an interlocal agreement for one single collection contract. That's gonna be challenging to put together because we're all on different schedules with our single hauler contracts. We don't have one yet. But it's something that could be a possibility. And I think it's worth considering whether this ad hoc committee is just township folk, or if we make it tri-community from the very beginning, because then we get to better understand the needs of the cities. And we get buy-in from them right at the beginning because they're at the table putting in their input. So this recommendation is to allow me to move forward with initiating the process, initiating the process of establishing a tri-community ad hoc committee that would be tasked with making a formal recommendation to the township as to whether or not we should pursue the hauler, and then also be responsible for putting together the RFP and potential agreement for the township. The benefit for the cities participating is that they need to get their own agreements. Holland does this all the time. They are constantly reevaluating their agreement and trying to meet the needs of their residents. If the two cities want a really solid agreement, they have to do the same. So their participation would also be beneficial for them, because then they would get insights in how to modify their own agreement moving forward. So we could go at it alone, or we could go at it from a tri-community perspective. And that's not to say that we have to do an interlocal agreement right off the bat. That's probably not possible. So I'll probably just, let you know all that's kind of more of a long-term thing, but at least we're starting to work together, and we wouldn't have to backtrack it at some point, that we would be working on looking at their contract and putting together an RFP for us, together, and then we would be able to utilize some of their people who are very invested in looking at recycling and waste hauling services. So that's probably something that you might want to discuss or have questions about.
A little bit related to that, but the proposed motion states that it would approve for staff to initiate the formation of a tri-community ad hoc committee. So how would you see that committee selection taking place, or what would the process be related to that?
It's an interesting question. So like one of the things that we'd have to think about is, what is the makeup of that community? And this came up at the recycling meeting today. There were some voices on the committee that would have liked to see a council member and a board member from each community sitting on that committee. I have a slightly different perspective on that. When the Tri-Community Recycling Committee was formed here, there was no board member sitting on there. There was accountability because there were submissions of reports, but we were able to bring in 3 brand new people from the community to sit on that and give their perspectives. In this case, because I think that going single hauler for the township is going to be a complicated process. If a board member would like to sit on that committee, I don't think there's any problem in that, but I do think there's a benefit to bringing different voices and different perspectives from township residents on there. So the way I see it is there would be 3 residents from the township. Maybe one of those people does not like single hauler, because I think that might contribute to the process. And then give the cities, 3 members as well. If they would like to put a council member on there, I think that that's fine, but I don't think that that ought to be a requirement.
Wasn't the chair of the Tri-Community Recycling Committee a city council member?
Yeah, they
and
were.
mayor?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
just,
So
was Well, was she of the three communities, was she the only elected official?
No, so Barry Johnson also sat on that
That's right.
committee, and I believe when the committee was formed, he was still on city council. Over the existence of the Tri-Community Recycling Committee, he is no longer on city council. But Kathy North, who in Douglas was on council, she was the only member of council on the Tri-Community Recycling Committee. She's not running for re-election, so if the committee were to continue, you would have 0 council members from Douglas on the Tri-Community Recycling
And we
Committee.
never did.
And yeah, we never did.
Township, okay.
And I don't think that really hindered our success.
No, I'm just asking.
No, yeah, it's good, yeah.
So I'm thinking from one perspective, it would be nice not to have. Council members, because it would be from the community. And we wouldn't be pushing it, and so if they have questions, they can bring it to whomever, or they come and make regular reports. Where they could present questions as well, but it really would be nice, I think, to have it be a community effort as opposed to us driving it.
I agree.
Or trying to run it.
I think that's a good point.
It makes their recommendation to the
Right.
board more pure,
Yeah.
that we're not tainting it or steering.
But the question would then be, do the two cities agree with that?
And do we appoint the members of the
Because
committee, so that also.
Right, because in the past, they both had elected officials representing them.
I guess we have to see,
We could suggest.
What they say.
We could suggest. Because I like the idea,
Mhm.
because the recycling committee, which we sort of endorsed to continuing with. Is it still meeting? I'm sorry, but.
It's still meeting. Technically, we had our last meeting today.
Okay.
I did submit this report on kind of like a future vision. We had some printing issues in this, but we got some weird things, but I kind of laid out like a long-term vision for the community. This first point, though, it's on page 52, like develop a plan to review current single hauler contract. That really is a great recommendation for the cities. It's something that like Holland does. And they should do, because they do have people complain about their program, and there are ways to make it better. So they would benefit from participating in something like this. And then we're starting from the ground up. So it's not going to be perfect the first time out, but we can do our best. And I think, yeah, hearing from different community voices is going to ensure that we're going to get something closer to what we need.
can I ask one other question? It might have come up in that forum.
Mhm.
Would we be cutting out a lot of small businesses? Haulers, I mean, I don't know anything
who?
about the individual haulers, I don't know them. Cause remember, I've only been here 6 years.
No, but there's fewer now than when you moved here.
Oh, we got the new guy.
There's three.
Marcus, you know.
But I'm just
There's only
wondering,
3 I know.
yeah,
It's
and how many do we have that are big enough?
the benefit is that, I think that we're small enough where more waste haulers would bid on us. I'm hoping that Aero Waste would be a bidder. Republic is definitely a large one, so they could bid, but we might be able to pull, 1 or 2 other ones, maybe Waste Management, maybe, I think it's called Best Disposal, it's in South Haven.
They're not here now, though, so.
They're not here
Right,
now. To answer your question, like Russ was saying, it would impact their business if you went with one person and you cut the others out. There's another perspective where, we are building, something that I would like to express to a hauler if we were get to that point inside a contract, is that we're looking to kind of build a program and use them as kind of like our, as the foundation of that, and utilize other Michigan-based businesses in that process. So for instance, we integrated the battery bucket. That's a Michigan-based company that we're supporting. We have the paper gator that is supporting a Michigan-based business. So if we have a foundation for developing a waste and recycling program, while it cuts out other haulers, it opens other doors to support other local businesses. There's a local business called Wormies. It's vermiculture composting. That might give us a foundation to support them. So it's complicated.
Mhm.
Yes, you can shut out other businesses. That's not our intention. And that's why I think that cost shouldn't be the only factor we consider. And I think the public's made that quite clear, that cost is important, but it's not the most important. But it also gives us that foundation to build out a program and support other local Michigan-based businesses in our area. And Holland's been able to do that.
It's complex.
It's complex.
Yes.
So if a trustee were to make that motion, would you want it to be clarified or added to direct staff regarding initiating contact with our neighbors and getting them on board as well?
Yeah, that would be
Like that
great. Yeah, that would be
motion to
great.
be amended in the case that someone would like to make that motion.
I would say so. I would say yes. If that's how you feel, if you feel like it'd be most beneficial to involve everyone, I'm totally in support of that idea. And yeah, if you want to make that explicit, that would be fantastic.
But
I
it does
think
say,
it's in here.
try, it is in the
I'm
tri
sorry.
community.
Community.
Yeah, so is that what you mean?
Think so.
The C,
Yes, I-
yeah,
I
tri-
do.
yeah,
I'm
okay.
very sorry.
No,
And to the point of discussing what types of people should be on it, I don't think that has to be explicit
No.
in the motion.
No,
That'll come be part of the process.
and I definitely have heard things tonight that would give me an idea of like what you would like to see.
Okay.
Oh, I have one thought.
Yeah.
Only
I
one?
I don't know, yeah. I
Yeah.
know.
Sorry.
I'm not sure if I can even explain this, but so I know we've traveled down this road. And well, I actually have two thoughts. Okay, so long ago, I was on an education commission in Lansing. And the project was schools of choice, and this was, back in the 90s. And our direction was schools of choice is going to happen, so you have to develop the rules. Are we, so we need to be clear on the guidance to a team and
Right.
say, are we going to go with single hauler and this, you're gonna have to make it work? Or are we evaluating whether we're going to single hauler? And then, so my second thought leads me to, is this the project we wanna undertake or? And I'm not suggesting this, I'm just thinking the way I think, and so I'm saying, or do we really wanna have the township have a recycle center? Build a recycle center that works for the whole community or something, I'm just throwing that picture out there, so I'm saying that I think about this a little differently. And I did think that we got a lot of comments at the meeting. I was in Holland when we went, and I was on the city council when we went to city single hauler, and it has been very good for Holland. It really has been, yes, and it was a really good move on their part, but it's not to say it's without its glitches and misses, but that's okay. I mean, it's worked for Holland, and their main goal was to cut costs and drive up other products. And so when you talk about going to people's door and things like that, Holland had done an extensive survey on how to meet the needs of the elderly, and they did that in the late 1990s. And so they looked at everything, crosswalks, sidewalks, lights. They looked at every aspect of the city, and one of them was garbage pickup, and they wanted to make sure that whoever did that could go to the door, garage, or whatever. And so I think those were good points to take in, but I guess I'm suggesting that we look at the big picture and know if we establish a team, that they have some pretty clear guidance.
Well,
I-
I was just gonna point out, the proposed motion says whether to pursue.
Right.
It's not a direction to
It's
come
whether
back
to
with an
pursue,
RFP and a recommendation. It's whether to pursue.
yeah,
And the point about serving elderly people and coming up to the garage or the door. I mean,
it's just one aspect,
no, but we have that feedback. The survey is
right, we do,
impressive. So
right,
I don't have a concern that this would negate any of that, I think.
right.
I think it is, thank you for pointing that out, John, that's helpful, but I do agree with, Kirk Israel's, we need to be really clear, like, what stage are we at the decision-making process, you know, are we like, are we still like just considering it, are we heartily considering it, are we like, you know, we need to be clear about that, I think. Well,
I think we're really,
With the-
really, really, really early on.
yeah, okay,
Okay.
Even though there's been that one meeting, which was very helpful.
okay,
And we all know that twice in the last 12 years, the township board considered single hauler. We know where that went. And like you said, I don't see this motion as saying we're gonna consider single hauler.
Okay.
I mean,
Well,
let the
that's-
committee.
that's
flesh on that.
helpful to
That's,
see
do you
that
agree that
everybody's
it's
kind of
it's
See,
still early,
thinking
early
about this
days? or
similarly.
not?
I see it both ways.
Right.
Yes.
I see it both ways.
glad that we've had this conversation.
I'm wondering if we
I think
could
it's good.
remove part 2. I mean, wouldn't that be the next step? So they do whatever they have to do to determine whether or not they make a formal recommendation to the township
Mhm.
about pursuing it. And then I picture that part 2 being a whole different,
Right, it's putting the car- it-
Like a
it's
next.
yeah,
It's
and it's
almost
almost saying like,
assuming,
well, yeah,
right.
yeah, it's almost like saying,
Um,
we're already gonna do it. Or would that make it easier? That's one focus, no?
I guess I struggle because I'm in a, mentally, not mentally, but like, I'm in a different
We've
phase.
already
like,
traveled down the road.
I've traveled down
Yeah.
this road, like, so. Way back when I submitted that 30-page report
Mhm.
on, and it was a recommendation for single hauler, and I
Sure.
did go through the entire, I mean, it's on the
Oh.
website now, but I went through the entire history of both times that. Single hauler was considered by the board, and it was kind of like there were. You could kind of see why it went sideways. And you could also see that I think sometimes it comes up, people forget that the township used to be part of the Allegan County Resource Recovery and Recycling Program, and the voters voted to opt out of that.
Yep.
It happened during an off election year, which was kind of sad, and I don't think that there was any kind of education surrounding that. And so for quite some time, the township has lost any kind of equitable access to recycling. We've just been without
That's
it.
true.
And that's something I think that we've gone through, it's been so long, we forget. And so for me, I do see the need to fill that void. Now, there are two ways that you can go about it. To get people equitable access to recycling, you can either go single hauler, or you can say single hauler is dead and we are going to rejoin the Allegan County Resource Recovery and Recycling Program. That would provide people with an affordable option for recycling. Now, they could not opt out of that. If we did go that way, and they would have to vote on it.
Right. How come this time, if that were to be what happened, you said people could not opt out? In the past, they could.
In the past, they could, and that resulted in the township not collecting enough funds to make the program to pay off the county for the program. And so it was I'm trying to, I lost my words. It's I mean, essentially the township had to dip into the general fund to pay the difference.
Right.
Was there, did it come to your house and stuff, or how
Yeah.
did that work?
Yeah.
Like just a bin like we
Yes,
did now?
my mother had it in Douglas.
And the payments,
I think right now it's $50 a month. Oh, no,
no, a year, it was.
a
Oh,
year,
yes.
maybe,
'Cause
no.
I had it until I knew I
Two
could
times
opt
a
out.
year.
It was like $25.
It was low.
Yeah,
It was low, but it wasn't enough to
and the
cover the
bins were
cost.
tight.
Oh,
So that fee would be in place and that.
Well,
would
I'm just
increase
wondering,
the fee Anyway,
Because I'm someone, I think I'm the only one here that was at both of those hearings in the past, because I was very passionate about
You were there.
issue. Really? Well, I didn't know you.
Yes, Stacy's.
Yeah, we didn't know each other, I was there.
Then
maybe I was.
No, I mean, the two.
Yeah,
A long time ago.
I mean, I went to all of them, I gotta say, because if I
In the
was
last
interested.
It
I
happened-
was for it and found out everybody wasn't,
It was
so,
twice in the last 15
yeah,
years.
right.
Okay.
And drew
I could- I
the
was
second
surprised.
largest crowds to this room, second to North Shore and the Marina. And it was, but there were, a lot of people were drummed up by particular companies that were backing,
Right, okay.
not moving forward. And famously, our supervisor at the time banged this very table and said, over my dead body, would we take this freedom away? It became like this huge personal freedom issue.
Mhm.
Now, and I'm just sharing with you because I'm in the office every day. And in the last year, the number of phone calls and people coming in that have just bought homes here and they're paying higher taxes now, and they're like, how do I recycle?
I know,
And it's
I,
like, well, okay. And
So much.
yeah, I've been here 18 years, but when I first moved here, I was like, oh my God, I've lived in 7 different 6 states in my lifetime. I never heard of paying for trash collection. It always just happened.
oh,
I've learned to live with that, but it is a growing issue.
Well, I think, I'm sorry, John, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, maybe with this proposal in front of us, instead of the 1 and the 2, maybe the 2, instead of saying drafting an RFP, is either potentially drafting or considering drafting. If that would just,
Well, I guess if
Allay
the,
your-
if the recommendation is to go with a single hauler, then they would draft the RFP. you know?
if they had that direction from the board and the 2 councils, right?
Mhm.
Well, I'm just gonna say one other thing that I think the committee, which I think is a fabulous idea, needs to have just some clear direction and going back to my story of schools of choice. We were put on this commission in Lansing and people were like, well, we don't really want schools of choice. And they were like, well, that's what you have to have. So then they drafted rules to make it so it was very difficult to have schools of choice. I mean, they limited class sizes to, you had over 22 kids, you wouldn't be able to take anyone and things like that. So I thought, oh, this is very interesting. You know, so I really look at this in a way that we want people to really look at it and understand it and have clear direction.
and but that sounds manipulative. What happened to your committee?
Us, but like. all
I'm
committees.
Well,
sure.
we have school choice now anyway.
Yeah, we
so
do.
it's-
Well, that they passed school
That was-
choice then, but it was then, the question was, how do we operate it?
Right.
So are we making the scope too narrow then? Conversely, playing my own devil's advocate. If there are other options, isn't that something they should look into? For example, the county, and is that the only other option?
That's the only other option.
Wow.
Yeah, other than letting everybody do it on their own. And the other challenge, I mean, this is why I want to go the single hauler route first, is because there's the other problem where, you know, residents are paying quite a bit more for waste hauling services than our counterparts in the
Right.
cities. And then, you know, we do have a new smaller hauler operating, but that hauler can't accommodate everybody. And it forces the others, you know, the majority of the residents in the township to go with larger haulers who know that there's no other option for them and that they can charge, you know, anything that they want. And so that it's kind of coming out of that recognition, like, is this an issue that we just kind of let lie and let it play out? Or is it something that we respond to? Because we are hearing, you know, we are hearing from the public that they're upset with, you know, their rates. And I think the cat's out of the bag now. You know, more and more people know that the residents in the cities pay less than half of what they pay. I mean, I think that the new contract amount for the city of Douglas is under 200, where on average, a resident in the township is paying probably over 400 just for waste, not recycle.
If I could just add here. Is that
I'm
all?
going to speak at some point, but yeah. Well, I've been trying to speak, yeah. I was just gonna say, I've been asking, I go out and this is the question I ask, and they're not filling it out on the website. And the pulse is turning in the community. They're much more interested than they were in the past. And they said, I voted no last time, but I'm willing to hear. So I think this is a good thing to happen because they're really interested in, because they're tired of all the trucks on the road. I hear that over and over, and they're tired of the higher prices. So I think it's more accepted than it was before, because, they're changing their minds a little bit, so. Go ahead.
No,
I-
I'm just trying for a while.
no, I didn't see you try.
I don't know.
You were
It's okay.
quiet for so long. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And you know, I agree with you. I was just
Okay.
gonna add, 2 weeks ago, I changed haulers. I've been the same one since 2004, which got purchased by a big national company. Every year, I pay annually, it went up over $100. The last time they wanted over $500. And I've been a customer since 2004. And as you said, the cities, I mean, this whole notion that competition lowers prices is completely untrue. It's just the opposite. And I agree that the tide is turning, and we're just saying, let's explore this. But, over $100 a year raises, that's how you reward a loyal customer. And you should see, there's lots of examples like what I just said that I've gone through. You can see it on Next Door Neighbor all the time. It's mostly aimed at one particular company, but it's still. Maybe there's a way we can better serve the community, and very importantly, I think for all of us, increase recycling rates, because a lot of people don't even bother doing it.
Well, I was so shocked when I moved. I should have known that. I've been coming here for 40 years, but very shocked about the recycling.
Yeah. That's-
To Becky's point, I'm wondering if we rephrase the directive as a question and say, how do we address the challenges that the community is facing with respect to waste and recycling services?
Oh, I like that.
Because then they look at the county option, they look at the single hauler option, they can look at a MRF, the costs, and they see everything, and then they come up with a recommendation for us.
Which I think is really.
I like
good
that,
because-
asking.
And I really like the inclusion of the tri-communities, because when you talk about it's so much cheaper in a smaller community that's so close, and then you get out here to the township and it's twice the cost. There's benefits to merging and consolidating services. I mean, that's huge, I think, so.
But that's in here.
I know it is, but that's why but he's saying the special committee ad hoc for tri-community, and I really support that. I think that's great.
I just want to say thank you all for investing in such thoughtful deliberation. I think this is really important. Daniel, would you like to take a moment just to modify that?
Again, there's not a,
Motion, and see if there's any trustees willing to, that are agreeable to make that motion?
yeah, so let me see.
No pressure.
Make it a question.
I asked so much of you today.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of how to do it, because
I
I'm
kind of
open-
think it's good the way it is. The way,
No,
I don't know.
the only thing I'm thinking is, so move to approve, deny staff to initiate the formation of a tri-community ad hoc committee to identify and offer recommendations on meeting challenges or meeting community challenges for waste and recycling services.
I like
Something
that.
Mhm.
Yeah, meeting community challenges for waste and recycling services. Sure.
Meeting community needs or addressing community challenges. No, wait,
Well,
let's say meeting community needs,
I like needs,
needs
yeah, because
and then
better meeting. community
better
needs.
meeting community needs.
I like that.
are we still gonna say make a formal recommendation whether to pursue or just make recommendations, take out formal?
Yeah, we can take out formal.
And then would the RFP still be in there?
It could, so,
Listen,
Well, that would come from the township, really, wouldn't it?
I think if we say potentially or considering. Isn't that,
Sure, then we don't have to come back to it for everything.
you know, it's not saying, we want an RFP proposed, drafted, I mean.
Could be included,
I mean, potentially down the road, who do you see drafting the RFP? Would it be Daniel and, I mean, a
Well, there's
Saugatuck leader?
Three city managers.
Right, so
And
what,
two of them already have agreements, so.
so we're not asking a committee to draft an RFP.
this does.
This does,
I
it would, I mean, I imagine that they would give input for what would have to be part of the RFP.
That's exactly right,
Yeah,
but they really wouldn't draft the RFP.
They wouldn't really draft the RFP, they would give input as to what absolutely had to appear in the RFP,
Had to be included.
had to be included, yeah,
Okay. Okay, does that make sense?
yeah.
Okay.
so
John's busy at work over there.
I'm trying, I can't read my writing though. So we're saying, instead of drafting an RFP, offering input on a potential.
Providing input.
Yes, on a potential, perfect, I like that.
Offering, what did I say?
Provide-
I would say
Offering.
providing input,
On a
said
potential
Not
RFP.
not offering, providing
Providing input,
on a potential.
okay, there's potential, I like potential, okay,
Agreement. That would meet the needs of the township resident.
should I try, and then you can,
Absolutely.
Yeah, if we have to.
we can come back. All right, I would like to move to approve. Staff initiate the formation of a tri-community ad hoc committee. Tasked with identifying and offering recommendations to meet community needs. And
Associated with
what
regarding waste hauling and.
regarding
recycling,
waste
right?
hauling and recycling services. and-
Single hauler waste. Right, is that what we would say?
Well, no, I don't think we're doing.
Including potentially single hauler, a single hauler agreement and providing input. On. I can't read that word,
You got it.
input on
A potential RFP.
adapting or. On a potential. RFP. And single collection agreement that would meet the needs of the township residents.
But they might, because we would only need that RFP if we went single
Right,
hauler.
that's why the.
Correct?
Right,
Got it,
right.
got it,
Potential.
Right,
got it.
okay, sorry about that word, it was a good word.
Miss Morgan, do you feel like that, were you following that? Is that, no?
I'm gonna speak up and down later.
It's
Okay, that's-
recorded.
It's
It's
recorded.
recorded.
It's recorded.
Play the
That was good.
Oh, thank you. Yep, I
It
stumbled.
was laborious.
One
so
word I
you
missed.
made it through.
Thank you.
It'll
Does
only
that-
be.
But I think we
paragraphs
made
long.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
this is, I think.
I think it's
I,
very
I
nice.
think that I can make that work because the city's needs are gonna, what the city's wants are gonna be broader than ours.
Right.
Right,
So I think that allows that flexibility to accommodate their needs, which. You know,
would be different.
which would be different and they're gonna be insightful for us regardless, but then they'll also know that they're gonna have to. You know, accommodate us in kind of talking through some of these issues, and I have a lot of background information on this, I know the people to connect that committee with. To talk through, you know, the options, because there really are kind of three basic options there. Single hauler, the county program, or a material recovery site, so like a drop site for people.
Those are comments, we have a motion.
Oh, sorry, there was a question.
I asked the
Well, I
question,
don't.
if this met his needs.
There could be
You
discussion.
can talk, no, after,
Yeah,
we have a
we can-
motion on the table,
Oh, sorry,
that comes after,
Okay.
if there's a support.
Sorry.
that's
I'll
all.
support it,
Okay.
and we can move on.
We have a motion by Helmrich, support by Marcy.
Okay,
Further discussion?
there we go.
Does this meet your needs?
It's wrapping right up.
I know.
It's- Yes,
yes, I think, yeah, I think it meets my needs.
Because I don't want to frustrate you and put you in a frustrating position now with it. If it gives you the direction to move forward, that's what we want to do.
I think that I have an understanding of who to connect committee members with to
Okay.
answer a lot of these questions and steer them in the right direction without telling them what to think and what to do.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Lots of resources. Okay. Any other comments or discussion? All right, hearing none. This
Oh,
is-
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
It just dawned on me. Just a procedural. Will the members of, if this committee is formed, will the members from each community will they be approved by the councils and boards? Or will it just sort of happen?
They'll be approved by their respective board and councils.
So probably you would bring us a potential slate of people.
Mhm.
But that would be posted like our other.
Yes.
agencies,
Okay.
Totally, yeah, totally transparent,
Okay.
posted, anyone can apply,
Consistent with any other board or commission.
absolutely.
Just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Motion by Helmut, support by Marcy. No further discussion. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Well done, team. Was a lot, but I feel like it was important work, so thank you. There's no old business. So we're moving on to the report section, treasurer's report.
All right.
Take it away.
Thank you, colleagues. So on November 1st, our general fund bank balance was at $1.985 million. You may note that that was down from October 1st, and that's because we invested an additional $500,000 in October. I'll give the details on that later. But balancing that out, we received almost $69,000 from the state for their first revenue sharing payment of the fiscal year. In terms of spending and revenues, general fund revenue is 10.6% behind budget. Spending is 12.8% under budget, even bigger, which is good. There were no department level expenses, and we're a quarter plus 1 month into the fiscal year. Tax year 2022. I think I told you last month, I'd sent out almost 300 second notices, late notices went out. And this year, they've generated an incredible amount of people paying them, or even coming in person. And often there's been errors or transfer of property, or they were in Florida and never got the first bill. So they're very appreciative, and it's a good effort. It's worth doing. And then right now, this week and next, I'm deep into preparing the winter tax bills and all that's involved with that, because those bills have to be ready to be mailed on December 1st and get to the printer 2 weeks before that. In the consent agenda, I always just want to point out, you approved 2 summer disbursements totaling $825,000 so far, because the season's winding down. The 9th one will go out the week of November 14th, and I'll report on how much that was next month. More detail on the investments. As I said, we took $500,000 out of our general account in October. We bought a CD with Capital One and one with Federal Home Loan Mortgage Corp, often known as Freddie Mac. And that brought our total value of all of our accounts up to $3.8 million. I'm working on revising, as I've told you, the quarterly detail report. I got a lot of input from the auditors and also the city of Saugatuck. It's just a question of what numbers do you report? Is it the monthly yield? Does that even matter? Because until it matures, so it's hard to do that. But I'm still honing that. But I guess the bottom line, and I think our auditor is very impressed, is that you've heard me say this before. When we started, we had $750,000 in investments. Now we have almost $4 million. And of course, I thank my colleague on the investment committee very much, because it's a lot of work. I mentioned the audit. They were on site last week for 3 days here at this very table. It went extremely smoothly. I think it was very productive for the staff as well. I felt like we spent more time this year, and I say we, between me and then Lori and Daniel as well, talking to them and getting more input on, as I said, I wanted their advice on how to best report on investments and deal with that. They also have offered, and they've already done it. We've been undergoing this year-long chart of accounts review that the state's required us to do. It's very complicated. It's confusing and hard to understand, but they kind of helped us get, I think we're over the finish line with that. And let's see, oh, I just mentioned Dan and Joshua. Only two of them were with us this week, but they really, it was very invaluable. It was very productive. And I hope you enjoyed going through your first audit. I do want to mention, I think we'll get into, I think this will be a board agenda for the workshop next week, American Relief Plan Act resolution. It's really highly recommended by the Michigan Municipal Treasurers Association that municipalities actually have the board adopt a resolution saying how they intend to spend their money. And we discussed this a lot in workshops. Again, we received $350,000 from the federal government in ARPA funds. That's all been sitting in my class, one of our investment pools, gaining interest, which is a good thing. And we've talked about using some of that for the township hall renovation, some for the ordinance review consultancy, and putting some into what we have to pay for the new blue side drain. So, as I said, we'll get into that more detail next week, but I would like to really strongly recommend that in December, we have a resolution to adopt that spells this out, because Nick, time goes fast. In April, you have to report to the federal government how we spent it. And as I meant, that's why I mentioned earlier some of those bills, and working with Lori and myself, I keep copies of that, all that. I'm tracking all that. We'll be able to report next year. So that's my report.
I'd like to just make one comment on your report, if that's okay.
Yeah.
While you and I celebrate, you know, all the significant uptick in our investments, I worry that some people might be like, holy cow, they're just investing all this money and tying it up. And just to clarify that,
Good point.
we've used bonds, CDs, and then the municipal pool. The municipal pool, that's very hard to say today. That's totally liquid. I think John gives them a day notice. We have those funds. There's no penalty. CDs and investments, still liquid. We can get those funds. We just would not get interest accrued. Like say, if I don't know if interest is accrued, say quarterly or once a year or twice a year, you just lose up to that last point where it was accrued. You don't lose any of your investments. These are all very safe. We still have that money. It's not like somewhere where we can't access it. So I just wanted to clarify that. And we're not even allowed to make investments outside of those parameters.
Right. No, we got a really strict
Right.
investment policy that we all approved
Yep.
3 years ago.
So I just wanted to clarify that, and thank you for all your work, and I really look forward to seeing, you know, the fruits of your labor, and look at how much, you know, what yield that we
And that's why I always point out what's in the general account.
Right,
It's not like we're depleting
Right.
funds.
right, good.
Because things have been going, and Dan pointed this out to Daniel and to me. He's very impressed with the fiscal health.
Good. I like
Our
that. He's
township.
very conservative, and I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yes.
Input. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. But it's a good
And
point.
just want to continue on into the planning commission report. That would be
Okay.
fantastic.
So planning commission met on Monday, October 24th. Michael Worth was on Zoom, so he didn't count as being present. And again, Dave Eiley had to recuse himself from a portion because it's a property that he has ownership in. And so Denise Webster chaired the meeting, most of the meeting. Public comment was heard. We had 6 residents speak up on the proposed brewery restaurant on Blue Star Highway adjacent to Mr. Eiley's properties. Those 6 were all in support of it. And there were 2 people that still expressed concern about increased traffic and safety, but they weren't necessarily against the project. So then we dealt with the SAU special approval use application for said Blue Star Brewery. And let's see, we had asked them to come back with a revised plan with more information from the applicant. There was much discussion on parking area access from Blue Star Highway. In the end, commission voted 5-0 to approve the special use approval with many conditions always suggested and appreciated from Township Planner Lene. And again, this was approval of the use, not the site plan. That'll come next. The former chair of the PC, Israel's, gave a very helpful and detailed update on the bylaws that she and the committee drafted, assistance from one of our councils. And let's see, then this is important because we were confused. In the past, we've been electing officers on January 1st, and we realized it's supposed to be the start of the fiscal year. So we were actually late. So anyway, David Eiley is now chair of the Planning Commission. Jackie Ground is our vice chair, and Denise Webster will remain as secretary. Then Lene Wells gave an update. There were some parking fixes done at Jars marijuana retailer across the street from Stacy from Abby. And an update on the ongoing top grade reclamation of the sand mining pit on Old Elegant Road near our manager's home. Apparently they'll be back because they've been evading us. We think they're going to be on the December agenda. November, though, this is going to be an interesting meeting. We've got some interesting projects coming to the commission for the first time. There's the Auto Camp project off of Blue Star, which is property where the what's it called? Schul's Motel is
Oh,
now,
right,
and behind it, they're coming for the first time. And a Holland Hospital project,
Yeah.
also on Blue Star, right next door to the Blue Star Gym. Watch, come to the meeting.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting. And that's on Monday, the 28th of November at 6 p.m. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
This open board report.
Manager.
Stacy, do you have,
Nope.
oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm just.
I'm gonna let you go.
silence Daniel.
Just trying to help. You out. Go ahead, Daniel.
All right, I'm gonna go kind of off
Yeah.
script because I feel like
That's
a lot has happened.
Yeah.
The biggest thing, the election yesterday was so fantastic. So a massive thanks to Clerk Israel,
Yep.
Deputy Clerk Lori Babinski. We had 2 board members volunteer. We had Supervisor Bigford and Treasurer Helmrich, and it was just so, and myself, but it was just so well organized, so well thought out. Every detail was attended to. The election inspectors were so confident and happy in what they were doing. Residents were so happy to be there. Everything went smoothly. If something came up, everyone felt confident that there was someone that they could turn to address the issue. So I think we should all be so proud of yesterday and how we served our community. So thank you so much. It was just totally fantastic. Results of the election, kind of historic for us. After 52 years of their existence, the Parks Commission finally has a Parks and Trails millage approved by 60% of the voters. And keep in mind, we had a 70% turnout. So I think that was a resounding yes of the public that they want to see, increased activity by the Parks Commission. They want to see investment in our parks. They want to see acquisition. They want to see conservation. So that's just amazing. And we'll be working really hard in the next year, prepping for our receiving of that millage. In the meantime, we are working on 2 grants. We're working on a Sparks grant, which is a temporary program through the DNR. They have $65 million of ARPA money to expend. So we'll be applying for improvements to the Tails and Trails Park, specifically with the master plan and the trail expansion for the cross-country team and for the general public. A new grant opportunity has also come up with the Coastal Management Program, which lives under Eagle. And we are proposing to conduct a survey of property on the lakefront and on the Kalamazoo River front to do an inventory and a market evaluation, and also to develop standards by which we rank properties in terms of priority for acquisition. And I have to take a sip of water. Township engineer and Parks Commissioner Dana Bird and I met with Eagle today. We did a Zoom call. They were super supportive of the idea. They thought it was completely eligible for the Eagle grant. So we're gonna move ahead with that. So if we do get to that point, I'll bring a resolution to the board in December to allow us to apply. Same with Sparks grant, so that's really cool. The road millage was reauthorized by almost 64% of the voters. And it's with the amended language, which allows us to spend money on non-motorized trails, sidewalks, and pedestrian safety improvements. So that's really great. I mentioned that to the auditor. He was very impressed with that. So that happened. We have next week our workshop, and on the same evening, I have scheduled the info session for the water main replacement on Riverside Drive. I've been working with Dana on developing a presentation. Chief Janik will also be there to present to the public. All of the mailers went out. I got confirmation from some of the neighbors that they received them. We're hoping that it's a success and they understand the need for the project. So that will be happening on the 16th of November at 5 p.m.
Here?
in this room.
He emailed the mailer. They sent
Did you?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
yeah. I have
it. You wanna look
copies.
at it, yeah.
I have physical copies too.
Okay.
So,
I don't know if I ought to be there or not, but.
yeah, so that'll be fun.
Who's that?
The zoning ordinance, I'll go back to script. Actually, one more thing off script. 60th Street, we signed the work order today. That was what was approved at the special meeting. And it is contingent upon that 50% contribution for Manlius. So we're moving forward with the complete
That's
repaving
great.
of 60th
Yay.
Street,
Okay.
so.
Well done.
Zoning ordinance steering committee met for their first meeting to review the audit. Zoning consultant David Jurassic is now gonna turn his attention to actually writing the ordinances. I think that's the most important stuff. I did go to the CVB meeting. That was very interesting because they have money for us. They're developing a community development line in their budget. And they're interested in hearing from 3 municipalities in what they could fund to support our community development. And then also utilize that to connect and draw in tourists. So promote tourism while also helping the community. It's kind of a rundown.
Cool.
Take a breath, good job.
Think about for many else. I think that's just a
Big win.
wonderful win, yeah.
Okay, now board report. Stacey, do you have anything?
No.
Brenda?
I'll take a second. I think most of what was in your report, the Manlius is huge, and I let it leak to one person who lives there.
Oh, good.
I told her it was her birthday present from the township. She's thrilled, and I assume they all will be so happy. And I just want to speak again to the election. People were calling me and texting me, driving by, seeing all these lines, and I was saying, I can't believe it because we had at least 1,200 absentee ballots. But people were saying it went smooth. Everybody that came in here, my niece really appreciated your assistance. So it was, I'm just really proud of you and the whole team that worked on it, so.
I concur. Thank you, Clerk Isfield. It's very well done. Everything about it. Do you have any comments during this time?
The only thing I was gonna comment on is the election, but 70% of our community
That is-
voted. I mean, that's just outstanding. So you can only imagine the 3 weeks leading up to the election, we had over twice the amount of AV ballots.
Right.
Come in, have to be processed, have to be mailed, have to be recorded. That's a ton. It was great. And so kudos to the AV board too, who processed twice as many ballots as they've ever done in their lives. And you guys worked so hard with 4 people.
And we had just the right amount of time. It was such a good team. I know that.
It was a good team and I really, really appreciate it. And Tony kind of led that process and came in and set up and met with me several times. Just a couple other things we did differently this year was through the process when it got really busy. John did a really nice job on slowing the entry a bit. Because we had people just lined up everywhere in a way, but it was moving very quickly. And then we also used 2 EPB books several times. So thankfully Daniel could whip out and get that going too. And that was really, really helpful. And I have to say, I just really appreciate John as the entry person. And I was pretty firm with him and said, but that's your job and you train people to do it.
I offered to stay longer and you didn't want
No,
to.
You were training people and you did a good job and
They
we had
were
good
good.
people there. We had really, really good people here this year and a lot of new people and they took it very seriously. And what I do appreciate too is when we did the public testing, 4 of them came in and participated in that. So they actually got a feel for the stuff that would come up, the messages, and the tabulator and things like that, and the flow. So I thought that was very helpful. And then we did devise a safety plan. And in the safety plan, I sent it out to people, but we reviewed it for like 5-7 minutes ahead of time. But I would like to thank the fire department who came in right away. Chris Mantle was here and available the first 2 hours. And the chief gave me a schedule of who was available every 2 hours with their numbers. So I had that in our safety book too. And then the state police I talked to ahead of time. And so then they came over the day before to say, this is who's on duty. We parked the car here. He went to Wayland, picked up the car and brought it here for us. So their presence was appreciated and their concern. And so I think it takes more than just a few people. I mean, it took a community and I really appreciate the community we had. I got a lot of thank you notes after from people who worked it. And to me, a thank you note is a real clue that somebody really cares. And so next election, those are going to be key people again to work. They took it seriously, they appreciated it. And when they left, just like you, they were worried that it wouldn't go as smooth without them. But everyone did such a nice job. So Daniel's expertise on the EPB is just outstanding and he did an awful lot of work for us too. So, and plus he was here at 6 in the morning when everyone else came. He couldn't sleep either. So, so we have a really good team of people here. And so I just want to say thank you. So, $2,250.
Do you know that's a record?
It is a record.
I mean, the whole, really, that's.
We're less than 100 active voters away from having a second precinct.
Oh, right,
But
right.
that doesn't mean we have to have a separate voting
Right.
facility. So we'll just work it out.
Mhm.
Work it out. 70%.
That's amazing.
You know, John, do you
Well,
have anything to add?
just sorry to be a broken record, but it was my intention and I was going to do it briefly. I just really wanted to commend my colleague and our fairly new board clerk, Rebecca Israels. I know how daunting it was your first time. And I know it was a little stressed and concerned, and I kept telling you that's because you care. And look what happened this time. It was perfect. Turnout, it was so smooth. It was fun managing 3 different lines. But I gotta commend the public. People were so friendly and patient. I don't remember any encounter of, why are we waiting so long or anything? It was just really cool. And on a side note, personally, I was pleased with a lot of the results, but we don't have to go into those.
Yeah.
Can I say
But-
one other thing too this year that we, and I think that I help teach people and probably because I am a nurse, but we were especially attentive to anyone that had any kind of physical disability, hardship, difficulty breathing, and or wheelchairs. And so we had our stand here in the beginning, and we were very helpful to get them in line up to that right away versus saying, oh, now you can register, now you have to go behind this line, you know, it's like. And so I think people appreciated that, the workers appreciated knowing that that's a priority of the township too.
Becky, what time did you go to Allegan?
I walked in my house after Allegan at 12:35.
Oh, that was pretty early. Okay.
It's late, but it's not.
We left 11 and one of the poll workers, a gentleman went with me, which I appreciated. And so then there were a few people ahead of us in line there. It was pretty smooth there. It was fine.
Well, and further on
Okay,
my
yes,
comments,
it is, John, that's right. Or-
Vicky's had 2 chances. What?
Never mind.
It's board comments.
Yeah.
I have one other one. I just want to acknowledge, and I know everyone's aware of this. And just acknowledge that in the last month, our friends and colleagues in the city of Saugatuck did unanimously pass a very in-depth, detailed, broad resolution regarding the potential marina in our township. So I was pleased to see them do that, and I think everyone's read it. And I just wanted to underscore, I think, the importance, potential importance that they have submitted something to Eagle and the Army Corps of Engineers, which they've never done before. And we have done so. That's all.
Can I ask one question regarding the election? Was there any, you know, there was so much worry, not here necessarily, but in a lot of areas about the problems that they might encounter. Did you have any trouble either with poll watchers in or outside or anything? I saw some pictures of places where that they had a lot of trouble. So did we have any of that?
We had someone that had contacted me from the Associated Press. And I asked for credentials and we had been in contact and he, you know, we just talked about who it would be good for him to come. He really just wanted results. And he was very professional and he sat in the chair and read a book and it was very nice. We had a poll challenger who was a little challenging of us. And then I kind of went back and talked to Abby because I was like, listen, help me. And she pulled out some stuff and then I was, you know, I felt confident in saying to him, you're not here to challenge this. You're here to
the process, yeah.
You're here to challenge people. And if you feel like we are letting someone vote that shouldn't vote and or we're behind someone to vote that should vote, then you can challenge us. And he said, well, there's not a problem with that. So I want to know. And he's jumping all over and he's on his phone. And I had 2 people that had come in during that time and say, what's going on with that guy? He's really bugging us. And they said, was he taking pictures of us? Because his phone's up here and he was marking people that were coming in and then saying to me, it took that person 13 minutes from when they hit the door to cast their ballot. And I just said, stop. I said, I'm sorry. We allow people to take their time in the voting booth. And we move the process along, but you have to stop. And I said, you've intimidated voters. And I've had 2 people raise a concern. I would like you to put your cell phone away. He said, well, I have to check in. And I said, every minute, you know, I was kind of like smiling. And then he said, well, no, well, what if I have to check in? And I said, then you can go into the office there with the door open. The light is on in Lene's office. And I said, you're welcome to check in there on your phone, but otherwise I want it in your pocket. And I don't have to, I mean, he really doesn't have to have it in his pocket, but he was jumping up and down and all over the place with it. So he was fine after that. And then at 8 o'clock, he was out the door. I think he just wanted to make sure we didn't close early. I don't know.
So one challenger, pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
We were, and no watchers, right? Yeah.
We had no
We had chairs for
watchers.
watchers and.
Yeah,
we
no
didn't have
watchers.
We had the area blocked off because we had to, but, so that's where the AP person went. And then he got the results very quickly and he was happy. Remember, he left and he said, "This great election here." So thanks.
Yeah.
So it went fine.
Good.
And I'm sure it went fine with our challenger too.
They're just not being trained as much as we would like. They don't know their rights. They don't know the parameters.
Like photography especially,
They're,
He
they
wasn't
really,
taking pictures.
but how would they know?
I mean, how do I know?
Perception is everything, right? Yeah.
okay.
And I did call Bob during that time, Bob.
Well, that's good.
Jeanette
That's great.
too.
We have a great community.
We do. That was the only thing.
Well, let's move on then to, public comment. Is there further public comment? This time? Yeah.
I just wanted to add something quick. Sometimes I feel like people either know or I assume that they know, but did want to point out that we do provide recycle service to everybody within Saugatuck Township. I believe Wise Choice does, so there is access to recycling service
Mhm.
within the township. And also, I think Daniel talked about the Allegan County program. I believe there were 3 townships recently that put it on their primary ballot to add the Allegan program. And it passed by all the voters as well. So I do agree with the sentiment that, you know, you guys had it before and then it wasn't voted on, but that seems to be kind of turning that, you know, people do want access to it. And that's why, you know, we also provide recycling services. So,
Okay.
Thank you for.
Yep.
Is it, can I ask him a question?
I'm open, sure.
No, the
Right.
public comment's not
All
supposed to be
right.
questioned.
As long as it's-
No, I'm just curious because it's come up,
Maybe
obviously.
tighten it up in the future.
What?
Because it's a pretty casual meeting.
Okay. I just wonder if Aero Waste currently anywhere in Western Michigan has a single hauler agreement with any municipality.
We do not. We run 35 trash routes every day and all of them are single subscription of people choosing to have our service.
Okay.
And
I used to be one of your
That's a good
clients in
question.
Grand Rapids,
Oh, okay.
company I worked for, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anybody participating online, Morgan?
No.
Okay. Jim, did you have anything further? No.
Good because of other companies.
Okay. I'm grabbing mine. All right, well then I'll go ahead and adjourn this regular meeting of the Saugatuck Township Board on Wednesday, November 9 at 7:57 p.m.
Bye.
All right.
Thank you, Larry. Good meeting.
Bigger